Before you scroll past this, stop for 1 second. Somewhere tonight, someone typed a comment on a video just like this one, and it said, "I've been praying for the same thing for 4 years, and I don't even know if I believe anymore." If any part of that sentence just made your chest tighten a little, this message was written for you tonight, not for someone else, not for a general audience, for you. There is a moment right before dawn when the sky is still completely dark, the birds haven't started singing yet, and everything feels exactly like it did the night before. But something has already changed. The sun hasn't disappeared. It has simply been getting ready, quietly, behind the horizon, for the exact second it was always going to arrive. You are standing in that exact moment right now. The waiting you have been carrying is closer to its end than you think. You have prayed the same prayer so many times the words almost feel worn out in your mouth. You have asked, hoped, waited, and then told yourself not to hope too much, just in case it doesn't happen the way you imagined. That protective wall you built around your heart wasn't weakness, it was survival. But tonight, gently, that wall is being asked to come down, because what is coming does not need you to defend yourself from disappointment anymore. Someone else left a comment on a video very close to this one that read, "I stopped telling people what I'm waiting for because I got tired of the pity in their eyes." If that's you, I want you to know this space right here doesn't need you to explain yourself. You don't have to justify why you're still hoping. You're allowed to still be waiting without anyone questioning why it's taking so long. Somewhere in your life right now there is a door that has been closed for so long you stop checking if it moves. A job that never opened, a relationship that never healed, a diagnosis that never resolved, a bank account that never grew the way you needed it to, a child who never called, a dream you buried so deep you convinced yourself you never actually wanted it. I am not here to tell you that waiting was easy. I am here to tell you that waiting was not wasted. If you're comfortable, tell me in the comments, even in one word, what you've been waiting the longest for. You don't have to explain the whole story. Just naming it tends to loosen its grip a little. Think about a seed pressed into dark soil. From the outside, nothing is happening. No one sees roots stretching downward in the dark, searching for water, anchoring themselves before anything is allowed to rise. If you dug that seed up every week just to check on it, out of fear or impatience, you would kill the very thing you were hoping to grow. Some things cannot be rushed without being ruined. Your waiting season has been that kind of soil. It felt like nothing was happening, but roots were forming, patience was forming, wisdom was forming. A version of you that can actually carry the answer without being crushed by it was forming. There is a reason certain doors don't open the moment you knock. They open the moment you are ready to walk through them and stay standing on the other side. You have not been forgotten in a waiting room somewhere in the universe. You have been protected from timing that would have hurt you, from people who would have wounded you, from opportunities that looked golden but were hollow underneath. What feels like delay from where you're sitting has actually been careful, deliberate preparation from where the answer is being written. Not every good thing announces itself with noise. Some of the most life-changing moments in history did not arrive with trumpets. A young woman received news that would change eternity in a quiet room, alone. A group of exhausted shepherds, tired from a long night watching sheep in the cold, were the first to hear that something extraordinary had just happened. Not the kings, not the powerful, not the ones who thought they deserved it first, but the ones who were simply still out there, still working, still faithful in the dark. If your life right now feels quiet, unnoticed, even a little forgotten, that is not evidence that nothing is coming. That may actually be the exact setting where the best news tends to arrive. Ordinary places, ordinary hours, ordinary people doing ordinary work, suddenly interrupted by something extraordinary. You don't need a stage to receive good news. You don't need applause. You just need to still be standing there, watching over whatever small responsibilities are in front of you when the moment finally comes. Someone commented under a similar message not long ago, "I work a job nobody respects. I come home exhausted, and I still make time to check on my elderly neighbor. Does any of that even matter? It matters more than you know." Nobody sees the mornings you wake up already tired before the day even begins. Nobody sees you counting money in your head before you fall asleep, recalculating what's left, what's due, what has to wait another week. Nobody sees the smile you put on for people who need you to be okay, even on days you're barely holding it together. But none of that has gone unnoticed. Every quiet act of strength, Every time you chose to get up instead of staying under the covers, every time you kept showing up for people who don't know how much it's costing you, has been seen, not ignored, not ranked as small, seen completely and remembered. There is an old promise that speaks directly into this kind of tiredness, that the plans being written over your life are not plans meant to harm you, but plans meant to give you a future and a hope you can actually stand inside of. That promise wasn't written for people who already have everything figured out. It was written for people exactly where you are right now, tired, waiting, still trying. One of the quiet fears many people carry is the idea that they have somehow waited too long, prayed too little, given up too many times, or messed things up too badly to still deserve something good. If that thought has crossed your mind even once this week, I want to gently interrupt it right here. Good news breaking into someone's life has never depended on that person having a perfect track record. It has always depended on the goodness of the one sending it. You do not have to earn the right to be surprised by something beautiful. Maybe right now your circumstances are loud, bills are loud, a diagnosis is loud, an argument that hasn't been resolved is loud, a silence from someone you love is loud. It can feel like the storm is the only voice in the room, drowning out anything that sounds like hope. There is a story about a small boat caught in a violent storm, waves crashing over the sides, water rising, everyone on board terrified they were about to drown. And in the middle of all that chaos, there was someone in that same boat who was not panicking, because peace does not require the absence of a storm. It requires presence inside of it. Your storm may not disappear the second this video ends, but you are not facing it alone, and you are not facing it without direction. Sometimes the miracle isn't that the storm vanishes instantly. Sometimes the miracle is the sudden, unexplainable steadiness that shows up right when you thought you had nothing left to stand on. A comment further down on a similar message simply said, "I read these and cry every time, but I never say anything out loud." If tonight is the first time you're actually willing to type it instead of just feeling it quietly, go ahead. Write the word that describes your storm right now. Calm, strength, patience, relief, whatever it is, put it down. Someone reading through these comments a few weeks from now, in the exact storm you're in tonight, might need to see that word from you more than they need to hear it from me. Let's be honest about something many people carry silently. The tightness in your chest when you check your account balance. The way your stomach drops when another bill lands on the table before the last one is even paid off. That fear is real, and it deserves to be spoken about honestly instead of brushed aside with empty positivity. Provision has never depended on your ability to control every outcome. There's an old teaching about birds who never plant a single seed or store away a harvest, yet they are still fed, day after day. That teaching was never meant to excuse laziness. It was meant to loosen the grip of fear around your throat. Work hard, plan wisely, save what you can, be honest in your dealings, but release the belief that your worth or your future is entirely dependent on a number in an account. Money can pay for a mattress, but it has never once been able to purchase a peaceful night's sleep on its own. Real security has always come from something steadier than a paycheck. That doesn't mean your financial struggle isn't real. It means it isn't the final word. Somewhere along the way, many people learn to treat their body like a machine that should just keep running no matter what. Skipping meals, skipping rest, ignoring the ache in the shoulders, the tightness in the jaw, the exhaustion that never fully lifts even after a full night's sleep. Your body has been trying to speak to you gently for a while now, long before it has to shout through illness to get your attention. A slow breath in the morning, a short walk in the sun, a glass of water instead of another cup of coffee. These aren't small, meaningless habits. They are quiet forms of self-respect. Caring for yourself is not selfishness. It is stewardship. True strength has always looked more like knowing when to rest than like refusing to ever stop. Sometimes the loudest storm isn't outside of you at all. It's the voice inside your head at 2 a.m. telling you that you're not good enough, that you failed too many times, that you're falling behind everyone around you. Someone once wrote under a message about exactly this. The version of me that talks to myself would never be allowed to talk to my own children that way. Why do I let it talk to me like that? That question deserves to sit with you for a moment. Not every thought that visits your mind is telling you the truth. Some thoughts come from old wounds that never fully closed. Some come from comparing your unfinished story to someone else's highlight reel. Whatever ugly words that late-night voice keeps repeating, they don't get to define you. Your past mistakes don't get the final vote on your future. The people closest to you should be the safest place you land, but sometimes home has become one of the hardest places instead. Meals that used to be filled with laughter now sit in silence. Words that once felt warm now sting a little more than they used to. People living under one roof, yet somehow miles apart. If that's your reality right now, you are not the only one carrying that ache quietly behind closed doors. Healing in a home rarely starts with figuring out who was right and who was wrong. It starts with one person choosing softness before pride, choosing a gentle response before a defensive one. A calm answer has a strange power to disarm anger before it grows into something neither person can take back. That doesn't mean staying silent about real pain or accepting behavior that hurts you. It means learning the difference between grace and self-neglect, between forgiveness and allowing yourself to be walked over again and again. If there are little eyes watching you right now, whether they belong to your own children, nieces, nephews, or kids you simply love and show up for, they are learning something enormous just by watching how you carry your hard days. A single kind word from you, a moment where you actually stop and listen instead of rushing past, a quiet reminder that they matter, can plant something in them that outlives you by decades. You don't have to be a perfect example. You just have to be a present one, willing to pause, willing to say I was wrong when you were, willing to let them see that faith isn't the absence of fear but the presence of trust even when things are uncertain. At work, you may have tried harder than anyone around you realizes, passed over, compared, judged unfairly, working in an environment that slowly drains something out of you. But there is a kind of faithfulness that isn't measured by promotions or recognition. It's measured by the choice to stay honest when it would have been easier to cut corners, to stay kind in a place that has forgotten how to be kind. You may not be in the position you hoped for yet, but faithfulness in small, unseen places has a long history of eventually being noticed in ways you can't yet predict. If you slow down enough to notice, the world outside your window has been quietly preaching this same message for longer than you've been alive. A leaf doesn't fight the season it's meant to fall in. It lets go gently, trusting that release is part of a bigger process, not the end of one. A river never rushes anxiously toward the sea. It simply moves, unhurried, trusting the direction it was shaped to follow. A wildflower blooms on the side of a road that almost no one walks down, fully, vividly, without needing an audience to justify its beauty. If the smallest details of creation are cared for with that much attention, your life, with everything you're carrying, has not been overlooked. Somewhere in your waiting season, people left. Maybe they didn't say goodbye. Maybe they just slowly stopped calling, stopped checking in, stopped being the person you thought they'd always be. One comment on a similar video said something that stayed with me. The hardest part wasn't losing them. It was realizing I was the only one who noticed we were drifting. If that's familiar, know this: not everyone was meant to walk through every season with you. Some people are there for a chapter, not the whole book. Their leaving, painful as it was, may have quietly made room for people who are actually built for the next part of your story. It's easy to measure your life against a timeline that was never actually yours to follow. Someone your age already owns a home. Someone you graduated with is already married, already settled in a way you don't feel. But comparison has a way of lying to you through half a picture. You rarely see the sleepless nights behind someone else's success, the debt behind their house, the loneliness behind their perfect photos. Your life was never meant to look identical to anyone else's. Being late by someone else's calendar has never meant being late by the one that actually matters. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from praying the same request so many times you start to wonder if anyone is actually listening. Unanswered doesn't always mean ignored. Sometimes it means the timing hasn't lined up yet with everything else that has to fall into place first. Pieces you can't see, people who haven't arrived yet, circumstances that haven't shifted yet. Keep speaking honestly about your exhaustion instead of performing a faith you don't actually feel today. It's all right to say, "I'm tired of waiting." That honesty doesn't push the answer further away. There is a dangerous little sentence many people repeat without realizing how much it costs them. "I'll deal with it tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll forgive them. Tomorrow I'll rest. Tomorrow I'll start taking care of myself." Tomorrow is a place that hasn't arrived yet. Today is the only thing actually in your hands. There's an old story about a man who climbed a tree just to catch a glimpse from a distance, never expecting to be personally invited into anything. And yet he was told, directly, that this was his moment, today, not someday in the distant future, once he became a better version of himself. If a quiet fear has been sitting in the back of your mind, the fear that you've simply waited too long, missed too many chances, made too many wrong turns to still receive something good, that fear is not telling you the truth. There's an old story about workers hired at different hours of the day, some early in the morning, some almost at the very end of it, and yet every single one of them was treated with the same generosity when the day was done. Timing that looks late from where you're standing is never too late from where grace is standing. Whatever chapter you think you missed, whatever door you think closed forever, there is still room for a surprising, unexpected turn in your story. One more comment, one that I keep coming back to, said, "I almost didn't watch this video tonight. I'm glad I didn't scroll past it." If you feel like that comment could have been written by you, this is your moment to say so. Before you go, type this if you believe it, even a little bit tonight. My wait is over. Not because typing it changes your circumstances instantly, but because saying it out loud, or writing it where someone else can read it, has a way of making hope feel real again instead of a quiet wish you were too afraid to admit. You have carried so much quietly. You have kept moving on days you didn't feel like moving. You have hoped in secret, even when you told everyone else you had stopped hoping. None of that has gone unnoticed, and none of it has been wasted. The waiting you've been living inside of has not been empty. It has been preparation. It has been protection. It has been the quiet, unglamorous work of roots growing in the dark before anything visible was ready to rise. And just like that first light before dawn, the change doesn't need to be loud to be real. So take a breath. Let your shoulders drop a little. Whatever door has felt closed, whatever silence has felt permanent, whatever ache has felt endless, something gentle is moving toward you, closer than it has ever been before. Your wait is not being wasted. It is being completed. If something in this message landed on a part of your heart that needed to hear it today, tell me what you're still waiting on. And if you've ever had a wait finally end after you'd almost given up completely, tell that story too. Because somewhere in these comments tonight is exactly the person who needs to read it. There's a comment I saw once that read, "I keep thinking if I just prayed harder, or believed more, or was somehow a better person, this would already be over." If that thought has ever crossed your mind, I want to gently take it apart for a second. Grace has never worked like a transaction where you pay enough faith to earn an outcome. You are not being tested to see how much suffering you can absorb before you're allowed relief. Sometimes things take the time they take, not because you fail to unlock them faster, but because certain doors only open when everything on the other side of them is actually ready for you to walk through. Let that possibility sit with you for a second. Not that you did something wrong, not that you're somehow disqualified. Just that timing, real timing, the kind that actually holds, is rarely something any of us can rush by trying harder. Another comment stayed with me longer than most. I stopped asking for the big things. Now I just pray for the strength to get through Tuesday. There is nothing small about that prayer. Asking to simply make it through one more ordinary day with your heart intact is one of the most honest, most courageous prayers a person can pray. You don't have to ask for the mountain to move today. You're allowed to just ask for enough strength to take the next step in front of you. If you've been surviving one day at a time lately instead of dreaming in big sweeping terms, that isn't a lack of faith, that's endurance. And endurance has a way of quietly building the exact strength you'll need the moment the surprise you've been waiting for finally arrives. There's something else worth saying honestly. Waiting doesn't always feel spiritual. Sometimes it just feels like frustration, like checking your phone for a message that never comes, like walking past the same closed door every single day and feeling a little more tired each time you pass it. You don't have to dress that frustration up in pretty language to make it acceptable. It's allowed to just be hard. It's allowed to make you tired. Honesty about the difficulty of waiting has never disqualified anyone from eventually receiving what they were waiting for. One more comment worth mentioning came from someone who wrote, "I've watched dozens of these videos hoping one of them would finally be the one that changes something. Maybe I'm just tired of hoping." If that's exactly where you are tonight, exhausted from hoping, worn down by disappointment after disappointment, I'm not going to tell you to just try harder to believe. I'm going to tell you that it's all right to rest for a moment instead of forcing yourself to feel something you don't feel right now. Sometimes the most honest form of faith isn't loud excitement. It's simply staying quietly, even when you're tired, even when you don't feel much of anything at all. If you scroll down to the comments and you see someone who sounds exhausted the way that comment sounded, don't scroll past them. A short reply, even 3 or 4 words,